But whether or not we can satisfactorily prove the existence to God to an atheist, I think there are some important things that atheism brings up that are important for us as Christians to recognize and deal with. And one of those is the trouble that religious people create sometimes. There are a lot of things that new atheists, other types of atheists point to, where religious people have failed, where religious people have been oppressive, have been violent, have been hateful. But is the problem religion itself, whether Christianity or other? Now, in one sense, looking at the types of religion that new atheists condemn, it is not religion, but an extreme form of religion. That's the problem. It is the violence enacted by religious people. Yes, using religious justifications, but there are a lot of religious people of a variety of religions who are not violent, suggesting that it's not the religion itself that's the problem. Because if the problem was religion itself, all religious people would be violent. And so all Muslims would interpret certain verses of the Quran and go out and kill people. All Christians would interpret certain verses of the Bible and go out and kill people, but they don't. So the problem is certain religious people, not the religion itself. The problem is hate. The problem is not religion as some sort of separate whole, but the problem is how religious people act. But ultimately, as Christians, the problem is sin. And so for the Christian, we have to recognize how much sin even shapes our own lives on this side of our commitment to Jesus. What Jesus offers is a way to escape that sin, but that sin still blinds us sometimes, leading to hate, leading to violence, leading to extremism. Finally, in thinking about how do you communicate the gospel to an atheist? If someone is a committed atheist, as if they were committed Muslim, etc., probably all you will get done is a hopefully positive, encouraging, friendly discussion. For the atheist that's truly committed, there probably isn't much that a Christian could offer in ways of proof. And if someone's committed that the only way they're going to believe in God is if God shows up and tells them to believe in God, that's probably not going to do that. But there are still some things that we need to consider in our lives as Christians wanting to communicate the gospel. First of all is, and this is true for any type of communication with non-Christian people, is to live a consistent life. Hypocrisy is a fruitful target against Christians. Now, obviously, there is a difference between hypocrisy and failing to always do what God wants. Hypocrisy has to do with the interior. The hypocrite does not really want to live the right lifestyle, but just wants to appear to live the right style. The person that's failing to live up to God's standards is different. They want to live the way God wants them to live, but don't always succeed in doing that. So hypocrisy can be of great damage to any sort of witness, but especially to an atheist. Another important aspect of it is preparation, being aware of the problems that atheists have with religion, and being aware of what it is that leads them away from religion. recognizing some of the areas that an atheist would attack, but also refusing to allow complaints about religion to dictate the conversation. Now, I mean that in a positive, friendly type of way. I don't mean, obviously going out there, no way we're talking about this. But in a way that says, there are other things that we need to deal with, not whether Muslims are blowing people up. Right now, we're talking about this issue. Right? So don't allow the atheistic complaints about religion to distract you from talking about what the Christian message truly is about. And above all things, and this is true in any type of conversation about the gospel, everything must be done out of love and from a loving heart. Even Paul, even Jesus, did not win everybody they talked to. And so, if you happen to be in a discussion with an atheist, quite likely you will walk away and neither one of you will have changed your position. But you can be sure in your conscience before God if you try to engage that in a loving manner. And ultimately, the reason that we should be interested in sharing the message with other people is because we love them, not because of any sort of self-gratification. If we truly believe that this message is the truth about how the world works, what's expected of people as they live, and what happens to us after we die, anything less than talking to people about it is not loving. Questions or comments? Anything we need to discuss before moving on? Let's move into a more topical issue. Instead of really looking at a specific tradition, I want to spend the last couple classes here talking about some aspects of religion in modern society and talking about how we see some of these things expressed. From the very beginning of the class, in the beginning of the class, we talked about defining religion, and every so often we've brought it up again. So we've talked about that. What about popular culture? What is pop culture? If you had to define somebody what pop culture means, how would you define it? What constitutes pop culture, or what makes something a part of pop culture?
Things that are popular in our culture.
Okay, so first of all, that idea, right? The pop part is that it's popular, right? There's a sizable group of people that are interested in that. Well, what is the that people are interested in?
Mass media.
Usually we use this term mass media to talk about a variety of things, right? Movies, music, television, books. All of these kind of things are what fit under popular culture. And so there's these expressions of society, right? These productions of society in certain formats that are enjoyed by a segment, often a large segment, of a society. Now, for most of popular culture, a lot of our pop culture is mass-produced. When you think about it, right, television companies are not just producing one episode or one television show. Movie studios are not just producing one movie a year. Right? They're trying to get a bunch out there. So there's this mass production of things, right? When book publishers publish, they don't just publish one book, they publish several 100,000. Right? Pop culture tends to be widely distributed. The The people producing pop culture want to get it out there as much as possible. Which means that there are a lot of economic considerations with so much of our popular culture. Now, in the past couple of years, we're starting to see greater expressions of pop culture by individuals. And so, producing something that goes on YouTube that then goes viral. And so people can enjoy it, participate in it for free, but a lot of our pop culture is pay to participate, right? You have to have the Netflix subscription, or you have to have the cable subscription, or you have to pay for the movie ticket, or you have to pay to get something out of Redbox.
Or you have to know that you have to know someone.
Or you have to know, okay. So, but essentially, pop culture has become a commodity. Right? This is a product that is sold to people, to try and get people to pay for it. And so the goal of producers of popular culture, for many of them, is to get people to participate financially in it. And we see that even among some of these indie music artists on YouTube. And more you start seeing them grouped with things like, there's this service called Patreon, where people can contribute money to this person so they can afford to make the video or, pay for a CD. And then you have the GoFundMe and the Kickstarter and other types of things. The goal is to get people to participate financially. But the other thing with pop culture that's interesting is that there's the goal of pop culture, a lot of pop culture, is uniformity. Get as many people to like it as possible. Right? When somebody produces a movie, they're not thinking, if we get 5 or 10 people to like it, right, that'll be okay. No, we've spent tens of millions of dollars, right, or hundreds of millions of dollars to produce this movie. We need a lot of people to like it. Right? And so you want people thinking the same way. You want people liking what you're producing. So how does pop culture and religion, how do they relate? Well, there are a couple of ways that we can think about them relating. One way is thinking about them in conjunction. Religion and popular culture. And in which case we would say there are two different things. Right? There's religion, and then there's popular culture. But both of these exist in a larger culture, right? So they're not totally distinct. And often religion and popular culture interact. Right? A religiously themed movie, or religious references in a television show. So they're not totally distinct, but we can think about them as being slightly distinct. We can also think of religion as a form of popular culture, so religion as pop culture. Now, it's not exactly the same way all the time, right? Religion doesn't operate the same way, but there are often some ways that religion does form a popular culture. Think about a popular movie. And one of those big movies, like a superhero movie or a science fiction movie, like Star Wars or those kinds of things. Right? You have of course, Star Wars. We're talking about religion. That was totally unintentional. All the other Star Wars references have been intentional. That was totally unintentional. But if you think about it, you got the product tie-ins, right? The action figures, the backpacks, the Happy Meal, right? You got the product tie-ins. You got the sequel. Right? And so a lot of those kind of things are very formulaic. You look at those kind of movies, they tend to run very similar. In some ways, Christianity in the United States has become like that. Right? It's mass-produced, it's widely distributed, it's formulaic. You can go into a variety of, let's call them mega churches, these churches that have 2,000 or more members. You can go into them across the country, and there's a great similarity to them. Where you would think, right, regionally, you would have some differences perhaps. You could go into a Christian bookstore and randomly pull books out of the inspirational or self-help section. And a lot of them are going to sound very, very similar. Right? And there's different authors on the cover, but very similar. Like contemporary Christian music. very similar types of things in the approach, how you present some things. And so sometimes certain aspects of religion act as popular culture. We've already also mentioned about religion in popular culture. And for a long time, religion has been in many forms of pop culture as well. And we've mentioned, right, movies with religious themes, religious TV characters, shows about religious groups or with religious people in it. But even if there's not something especially religious, we can probably find the tropes of religion in a wide variety of expressions of popular culture. A lot of people will point to certain figures in a movie or a television show or a comic book, right, as being a Christ-like figure, right, that there's something messianic about them. Movies with religious messages. For example, Star Wars. That was intentional. All right? We've talked about this before, right? There's these themes from Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity as well, right? And so religion in popular culture shows up like that. Positive and negative examples of religion. Right? So the Da Vinci Code from a couple of years ago, where there's this great religious conspiracy to hide these supposed facts about Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Or you can have positive examples, like some recent movies like Heaven is Real, Miracles from Heaven, a recent one with Jennifer Garner, movies of the movie Risen. So just within the past year or so, there have been positive examples of religion as well. But finally, in thinking about these interactions between these two, we can also see ways in which pop culture can act as religion. And a lot of this is what Chittister was talking about in his article that you were to read for today. He's not saying that baseball or Coca-Cola or rock and roll are religion or religious themselves. But instead what he's saying is that the language people use to talk about these things is religious language, using terms like sacredness or holiness or value or worth or community. Now, certainly most people would not say that baseball is their God. But they use the language that we find in other religions. And so sometimes pop culture can have religious overtones or act in religious ways.